What is your biggest financial concern? Are you being as intentional with your finances as you could be? How confident are you that you'll reach your financial goals? How will life's transitions impact your financial plan? Welcome to the Clarity and Confidence for Life podcast with Tom Fleishel, founder, president, and CEO of Fleishel Financial Associates. Discover how we can help business owners, successful families, and corporate executives achieve clarity and confidence for life while providing tailored financial solutions that eliminate complexity and free you up to focus on what really matters in life to you and your family. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Clarity and Confidence for Life with Tom Fleishel. Hey, this is Tom's third podcast. If you have not heard the first two, I just want to give you a little bit of a roadmap here. The first podcast was his inaugural, which is about 20 questions. Half of them are about business and his history, and the second half are really about him personally. You get to know him. The second podcast was, I asked the question, Tom, what's it like if somebody hears one of these podcasts or they see one of your presentations and they decide to reach out? From that initial phone call or that initial email, what does it look like? What happens? So he really mapped that out for us, talked about a couple different meetings that he gives complimentary to folks that call in. And it's a fantastic process. So go back and listen to those first two podcasts. Today, we're going to be covering what happens when you decide, hey, this is a good fit. I want to become a client. So that's where we're going to start today. Tom, how are you?
Just great. Thank you.
Fantastic. That last podcast was great. I mean, I one of the things I got out of it is that you're incredibly generous, right? I mean, you're giving of your time, a couple different meetings that you do for free. I think that's fantastic to get to know folks.
Yeah, I mean, we want to date before you get together. So you want to spend some time to make sure there's a good fit and we can make some real difference in someone's lives.
All right, so today's podcast, we're going to be talking about what does it look like? You've had those couple meetings. You've mapped out some things. You have, given them some suggestions and things that you believe would be most helpful to them. And now they've decided, this sounds really good. I want to start working with you. So let's walk through that. What does that look like?
So once we've agreed to work together, we like to sit down and just really confirm the traits of the best type of clients that we work the best with. So mostly it's those that are really serious about making smart choices with their money. They're really focused in on it. They follow up, they execute. They're what we call financial delegators. They're not the do-it-yourselfers that try to figure all this stuff out themselves because, they just really want to make sure that they're focused on those goals they're trying to achieve. And also they're coachable and nice people to work with.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you don't want the people that are like, hey, look, I have to have a budget of $1,000 for scratch tickets every month. This is part of my investment process. I got to have my scratch tickets. I like to do these things myself, and I just want you to kind of give me advice every once in a while. That doesn't sound like a good fit to me either. So once you've kind of identified that, and obviously you probably feel a lot of that out in those first couple meetings anyway, before you even get to the point of signing on that dotted line. When you say, financial delegators, I'm assuming that is, you want them to be involved, but you truly want them to be able to trust the process.
Yeah, they know that they can't really spend all their time trying to keep up with all these things themselves. That's why they hire a firm like us, because they'd rather be spending their time with things that they cannot delegate, their time with their family, their health, their spirituality, their career, their hobbies, so that they can focus on those things and delegate some of these other types of things to a professional team, also to someone like their tax person and their estate planning attorney, for example.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. The things you can't delegate. I like the way you phrase that, because you're right. You can't delegate time. You cannot, you don't get that time back. So being able to spend it, right, Tom, here's the thing. I've always thought about this. If I could delegate my yard work to somebody else, and I'm not there yet, I would love to get a landscaping crew to come in and like once a week and just make sure that my yard looked good. All the flowers, my wife likes to do the flowers, but all the other things, the sticks that need to be picked up, all that stuff. If I didn't have to spend that time in the yard, that would be just glorious to me, right? So I think a lot of people think of their finances like that. If I didn't have to do all this thing or juggle all these things, boy, it'd be a lot less stressful.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of worry off. I mean, you just don't have to spend the time agonizing, am I being intentional? Have I covered all my bases? If you've got really a trusted team that is taking care of all this, you can relax and just focus on those other things that are more important.
All right, so once that decision's made and they're delegating, what happens next?
So after this meeting, we'll send them a welcome letter celebrating our new relationship and introducing their client service associate / financial advisor team and how to contact them. It'll also include a summary of what to expect next in that letter. And then we'll be sending typically an e-sign packet to set up their accounts with us and transfer them to our firm. Sometimes we do it in paper format, but these days most people seem to find that that's really much more convenient and it's really easy to do. So we've even got people in their 80s that are comfortable with that. So it's not an age thing. And then once those forms are received back and processed and the accounts are transferred here, their dedicated team will contact them to discuss any last questions about, sometimes there might be some tax implications before we rebalance into their agreed upon portfolio allocation. So we don't want to have any surprises. We want to make sure that that's all ready to go. And so we have that conversation before we pull the trigger and get things rebalanced into the recommended portfolio that we have proposed to them.
Okay, so they've got that all taken care of, and they're balanced, right? And they've got their they know that they have a team in place that's taking care of those things. What happens after that?
So then their client service associate will schedule a follow-up, typically a Zoom meeting, just to review once they get their first account statements and coach them on how to read them and setting up their online access to their accounts. So they can decide, for example, if they want their documents in paper or all online or some combination.
Okay. So when you say client service associate, who is that?
That's going to be a dedicated person. Again, there's going to be a team of 2 people typically that are working with them, a dedicated financial advisor and a client service associate.
Okay.
That client service associate is more of the first line of contact for anything related to administrative questions, money movement, deposits, withdrawals, nothing too technical, but they're really very trained to address all those types of administrative questions and issues. If it gets a little bit more technical, the financial advisor will be available, of course, for those more in-depth conversations.
And I'm assuming that you have some sort of review process, correct, that is in place depending on the complexity of the new client?
Correct. We like to let them choose what schedule works best for them in terms of reviews, getting together, whether it's sometimes semi-annually, sometimes just annually, sometimes it's quarterly, depending on their situation and their needs. It might happen for a little bit. But yeah, those are definitely proactive scheduled meetings. And a lot of those are done by Zoom these days, but some people still prefer face-to-face as well.
All right. So tell me about that process.
So yeah, when we sit down, we go through what happened in their portfolio. We want to know about what concerns they have going forward. We talk about some of the updates on things like we're more concerned right now about inflation and what's happening in the world with that. And is their portfolio going to be structured to combat inflation and keep ahead of that over the next few years? And we review performance, we review tax situation. So it depends on the situation and what each client's needs are. We have another process before those regular scheduled meetings occur. We call our dream session. This is really fun. And this is where about 2 to 3 months later, we'll set up a planning meeting where you design the life you imagine by brainstorming on specific future financial goals on something we call the Financial Life Planner. And we're really going deep on why these are important to you. We always want to know why. And so, people might have a portfolio and specific goals, but what's missing is a strategy to achieve the goals and see if you're really, able to do them. So way too many times we find that not only do people not have clarity on their specific goals, they don't have any kind of intentional strategy on how to achieve them. So they're just kind of hoping it all works out. We call it living by default versus by design. The old adage, if you aim at nothing, you're sure to hit it. So, why be worried that you're not being as intentional as you should be, but let's just take some action and get a plan in place. So after reviewing our client service matrix, we can decide together which of the planning opportunities best fits your particular needs.
Okay, so how do you accomplish that?
Once we've listed all those goals out, and we decide which type of platform, because sometimes people have a little bit more complex situation. We may need to go a lot more in depth. Some are a little bit less complicated. And in both cases, though, we're really using this very robust software that can factor in all the variables of market gyrations. We're not going to get a 6 to 8% return every year. Of course, it's going to be all over the place depending on how your portfolio is set up. So, we look at your goals, estimated growth rates, we add in inflation, and it calculates 1,000 different trials to determine the success rate of actually hitting your goals and having at least $1 left at the end of your plan. So we don't want to run out of money. So what we want it to be in is what we call the confidence zone. So at least a 75% probability that we can achieve your goals. And then we can do all kinds of what ifs to help make the plan work.
All right, I got a tough question for you. What if somebody tells you, Tom, I really, really, really have had bad experiences within my family financially before, my parents and that, whatever it is, I had an uncle that, just went broke and, bet all his money on a horse and whatever, right? And they're thinking, I don't want a 75% confidence zone. I want to be in the 90s, right? Or I want to be in 95. What do you say to that?
Well, that's exactly right, because we would rather them be in that higher probability zone. And you certainly don't want to bet your retirement on a 50-50 flip of the coin, whether it's going to work out or not.
Yeah.
So for example, we had a couple that by slightly lowering their retirement income goals, and if the husband worked 1 year longer or saved a little bit more, they increased their odds and really up in that higher probability zone.
Got it.
So the beauty is that we can do all these what ifs in real time to see what needs to happen and get us in that high probability confidence zone. Another couple might say working together another year is non-negotiable. I don't want to work another year past my goal. So for them, we might make other adjustments to get in their confidence zone.
And I'm assuming that you've seen so many different stories. I mean, obviously that's true. I mean, I'm stating the obvious there, but I truly believe that the life experience that people have so influence their future decisions. And sometimes it's for the positive, sometimes it's for the negative, right? I mean, sometimes it's just unwarranted. My grandfather died of a heart attack, so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to die of a heart attack at some point. Well, that's just not true. You don't need to spend all your money in the first 5 years of retirement because you think you're not going to live past then. How do you help people get over that, those predetermined things in their mind or those fears that they have that, whether it's they're going to live to 150 and they need money forever, or, oh no, I'm going to die when I'm 63 because that's what happened to my family before.
Well, we can do perfect planning if you would tell me exactly what year and what age you would pass away. But it's always a challenge because we do go through some conversation around that to ask, okay, well, based on your family's history, how long did your dad live? How long has your mom, your grandparents? And so we ask each person in the planning process, what do you think is a reasonable age of assumption of how long your plan needs to happen? And it can be all over the place. And most of the time, people are reasonable about it. I always try to say, let's be a little more conservative because we don't want to say, well, I'm going to pass away and I'm 75 and you live to 90. Because then we haven't really done accurate planning and we might, based on the assumptions, run out of time before you run out of money.
All right. So I would assume designing these plans is pretty fun for you, right? You're a numbers guy and you like to put these puzzles together, it seems, or else you wouldn't be in this business. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So then we go into what we call the design phase, where we analyze all these factors and design your plan to meet your goals. And we present our findings in something called a strategic solution, outlining the action steps for you and for us to help you live your life by design. So, for example, we may have listed some steps like updating your estate plan, contributing more to your employer's 401k, maybe increasing your life insurance coverage or long-term disability, or even setting up a health savings account. Lots of our clients are wanting to save for their kids' or grandkids' college, so we talk about different strategies on college savings plans, 529s, those types of things. So it's all about coming up with action steps and items, and we jokingly say we become their friendly nagger. Let's just get this stuff done. So we have pending actions, so we follow up. Because, left to our own devices, many times we just want to keep kicking things down the road. And so by partnering with us, we really kind of become an accountability partner to really make these things happen. We feel very strongly about the accountability and follow-up, just because you can do all the planning in the world, but if you don't execute, you're just not going to get the results you're looking for.
I'm going to ask you right now for a future podcast. You ready?
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of the audience will want to hear about this too. I know that when you're talking about, people's hopes and dreams and what they want for their future, so on and so forth, some of that's got to be charitable planning. Can you do a podcast on charitable planning for me in the future?
Absolutely. We do a lot of that. That's just a very important part of our client's relationship.
Yeah, I believe so as well. I mean, I think that would be a fun topic for us to discuss. So I wanted to pin you down on that right now.
Okay.
All right. So what's next in this process?
Now then we go to what we call the delegate step, and that's where we take action on all those things we just talked about on your strategic solution to achieve your goals. So one of the things in that step is where we're really identifying the core members of your professional team, like your estate attorney, your tax professional, insurance agent. So we really want to be coordinated with them on your behalf. If there's not a good coordination between those folks and there's not communication, there could be some lurking landmines if the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So by delegating, what you can delegate, like these things we talked about, your investments, your taxes, your estate planning, this frees you up to focus on what really matters at most in your life, the things you can't delegate.
Well, and here's the thing. If you're just joining this podcast, you did not hear that his last podcast, one of the things that I just want to remind the audience of is that Tom discussed the fact that he has a vast network of professionals that he works with. It's a very deep bench that he's got there. But more importantly, one of the points that he made was if you have your own team, maybe you have your own accountant, or maybe you have your own attorney, he's not looking to replace those people with anybody from his team or anybody that he knows, within his network. He wants to work with them. So I wanted to dispel that concern right off the bat, because I think a lot of people think, well, they're going to change everything about my financial team. And that's just not the case. So I like the fact that you said the left hand needs to know what the right hand's doing. I mean, you guys have to communicate, and that's a huge part of that.
Absolutely. For sure.
All right. So where are we at in the process now? I mean, this sounds pretty robust so far. You've got a vision. You've got the team working together. You've got assignments for both the client and yourself. Where do we go from here?
So the last step in our process is called the deepen step, is where you're living your life by design, allows you to really concentrate on those most important areas of your life that we've talked about. You can't delegate your health, your time, your family, your spirituality, your career, and your hobbies. So that's where we actually want to also have you list out, well, what are some goals that I have for these things now that I can focus on them? So it's even more of a third dimensional aspect of our relationship, because, wow, now that you don't have to worry about as many of these other things, let's have you focus in on those and report back on how that's much fun you're having on your new travel goals or your time with your family or whatever it is that you want to do with your health or whatever. So that's all just so meaningful to us that we're really making that kind of a lasting difference in our clients' lives.
I love how earlier you talked about the different things that you help them navigate, inflation and taxes and all those things. And it just popped in my head. Hobbies. I love to do woodworking, but Tom, with inflation as it is right now, the price of wood is nuts. So having to alter some of my hobbies is part of it as well. So those would be fun conversations, I think, that you have with your clients for sure. And then, beyond the meetings that you have, what other ways are you communicating with your clients?
Yeah, we're constantly sending out things like blogs, podcasts like this one are going to be coming out regularly. Mm-hmm. Of course, we do the scheduled regular review meetings. And a lot of it is just we love having more fun client appreciation events with entertainment and social events. So we're continually building a connected client community. So here over the holidays, we're going to have actually an open house at my house. And then for our Jacksonville clients, we're having another really nice wine and tasting event up there in Jacksonville. Nice. We've done all kinds of fun things. We've done cooking classes. We've done events at our historic Athens Theater here, some live performing arts. During COVID, we actually did kind of a virtual wreath making class for everybody. So we sent them the material, and we got on a Zoom and had somebody show us how to make the wreaths. That was a lot of fun. Even wine tastings, sporting clay events. So we just try to find the things that some of our clients enjoy doing and put some fun times together. Because it is, we say we're in the financial business, but we really are in the people business. It's all about the relationships mm-hmm. and building those deep relationships, not only with just our clients, but the next generations. We now have relationships with the second and even third generation of some of our clients. So that's what it's all about to us, is just really making those lasting relationships and just having fun with it.
I would love to attend one of your virtual events sometime. I don't know about wreath making necessarily, but if you have a craft beer virtual event,
there you go,
that I could attend, that would be fantastic. Man, I mean, that sounds great. And I just, this on a personal note, I truly believe that without a relationship, there's no trust. And I think that that's one of the things that you and your team are really, really good at. Just by getting to know you over these last few months, you do such a great job of taking care of people and helping them, envision their goals and then, try to get to them. Plus the fact that you're very open and willing to have just open dialogue and communication that builds that trust. And I think that that's one of the most important things within any business. As a business owner, I believe that fully. All right, now I'm really going to put it to you because we're wrapping up this podcast. Thank you so much for showing us what it looks like. And if other people have questions, we're going to give some contact information here in just a few moments. But I do want to ask you, give me a couple of the subjects that we're going to be that we're going to be covering over the next few months.
Well, one of the ones that has just recently surfaced that we definitely want to do another follow-up podcast on was we had, unfortunately, a client that was a victim of a fraud from using Apple cards. It was an elderly lady who's really got all of her faculties. She doesn't have any diminished capacity whatsoever, but she had a health event and was just kind of in a weak and vulnerable state. And because somebody realized that, I don't know how they got a hold of her exactly, but they said, well, because you've been hacked, we need to protect your accounts and protect your assets and your computer. So you need to send us these Apple Card payments for us to be able to do this. And we want to talk about some cybersecurity issues and how to protect people from that. You mentioned things like charitable giving. We'll probably go into a little bit more in depth about some of the upcoming tax law changes that we're seeing coming down the pike. So there's definitely some great opportunities to keep people informed about what's going on.
Tom, those sound great. I'm looking forward to them. I'm also going to kind of throw down the gauntlet. If you're listening to this and you have thoughts and ideas or questions that you want answered by Tom and his team on the podcast, I know that they'll answer before they get to the podcast. However, if you have ideas that you want to learn about or maybe that your family wants to learn about, I know that Tom is very open to that as well. So, Tom, what's a good email address that they can email any questions that they have for you or maybe subjects they'd like to hear covered on the podcast?
Sure. They can email us at thomas.fleishel, that's FLEISHEL, at RaymondJames, all one word.com.
RaymondJames.com, not RaymondJamesAllWord1.com, alloneword.com. Just want to clarify that.
Yes.
RaymondJames.com.
That's correct.
You'll get some weird emails there at some point, or somebody will.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, Tom. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. Any closing thoughts for today's podcast?
Well, again, I think it's just so important for people to make sure that they're taking action and getting serious about their future. It's never too late to plan. Let's help you live your life by design and get focused on your future.
Again, Tom, thank you so much for today. And of course, thank you to the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Clarity and Confidence for Life podcast with Tom Fleishel. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Tom comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. It also makes it easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Fleishel Financial Associates, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity and Confidence for Life podcast. Click the subscribe button to be notified of new episodes when they become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the hosts and/or guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Raymond James. This content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your individual situation. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, member FINRA, and SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors Incorporated. Fleishel Financial Associates is not a broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services.